Hello, and thank you for the opportunity and time for listening to our research on the space access value chain for CubeSats. CubeSats are a great way to get payloads into orbit, and we believe that new technologies and market trends in the space industry will enable new architectures to come to fruition for CubeSat missions. As a brief introduction, Plutonics is a space startup working to democratize space access by reducing the biggest barriers for space missions, cost and schedule. My name is Kishen Raghunath. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Plutonics and have over 8 years of experience in the aerospace and defense sector. I am joined by Dr. Kang, who has been building CubeSats for the past 15 years. From this talk, we hope you will learn more about the current space access value chain, the different solutions on the market for manufacturing space missions, and learn about new technologies that we believe will make a big impact in the way the space business is done for the next decade. Space is hard. It's a saying that's been popularized in the last few years, and this is certainly an understatement, with up to 30% of CubeSats failing their primary mission objectives. However, there has been a renewed interest in space with large constellations benefiting from the CubeSat revolution and the influx of investors willing to fund these large projects. But even with this renewed interest and unprecedented funding environment, CubeSats still face many challenges in getting to market in a timely fashion. This is not only an engineering challenge, but a coordination and logistical problem as well. CubeSats have many steps they need to successfully complete to be launched into orbit. At a high level, there are 6 main steps that each CubeSat needs to follow. Establish mission objectives, select components for the mission, assemble and test the CubeSat, file for regulatory licenses with appropriate government authorities, launch integration and launch operations, and finally in-orbit operations. Each of these steps comes with a mountain of complications from coordination challenges between multiple suppliers and government organizations. This leads to an inefficient process that is capital intensive and time consuming. Most CubeSats today fall into 2 buckets for manufacturing and in operations: the do-it-yourself approach and the turnkey service provider approach. In the do-it-yourself approach, the owner and developer is responsible for each step in the process of getting a CubeSat to orbit, from defining mission objectives to developing payloads and sourcing components to testing, launch, and operations. Navigating this process can be difficult for new entrants and even incumbents in the space, since the landscape of suppliers, launch providers, and testing facilities is constantly changing. There are some pros to this approach, though. For cash-constrained organizations, the DIY approach allows for lower costs and the opportunity to fully customize the project, and it's also perfect for students and academics that want to get hands-on training and learning while doing. On the con side, the development timeline for DIY projects can be very long, and with customization comes complicated integration and testing. Reliability is not always guaranteed as well due to the unproven nature of the configuration. Turnkey service providers are another option that is much simpler for customers trying to just get their payloads to orbit. Companies such as Tyvak and Nano Avionics provide turnkey services helping define customer requirements all the way to a full set of operational capabilities. On the pro side of this approach, turnkey service providers often have heritage configurations that reduce technical risk. Their schedule is predictable since they are building buses in an assembly line fashion, and customers don't need to have large capital investments for facilities such as a clean room or specialized manufacturing equipment. The cons of this method is that they can be higher cost than a DIY, and customization can be limited or may come with additional costs. Overall, though, turnkey services do provide significant value and simplify the process of getting payloads into orbit and operating, especially for businesses. In summary, the DIY and turnkey free flyer options do have pros and cons that can be seen more quantified in this chart. However, there are also other options, such as a turnkey hosted payload provider. Services such as on the International Space Station, Iridium, and Loft Orbital also provide the opportunity to be hosted on another free flyer spacecraft and share systems such as power and data connectivity. However, one of the biggest drawbacks of this approach is that it is dependent on the main customer's payload destination, and often negotiations for sharing space and tasking time can be complicated for the free flyer spacecraft. Hosted payloads do provide a significant volume savings, so instead of using up to 50% of a 3 to 6U for subsystems, that space can be used for the payload itself. They also provide significant power and simplify operations to an extent, since customers are not controlling the entire spacecraft and only concerned about their payload. There isn't a best solution on the market right now, but there are different options to choose from based on constraints of the organization and the mission itself. New technologies can disrupt the status quo, and we believe that rendezvous proximity operations and docking will bring about changes to the CubeSat market. Docking has often been under the purview of large governments and for human-rated missions. However, satellite demonstrations such as those by ESA and NASA have shown that rendezvous proximity operations and docking capabilities can be utilized in the CubeSat and SmallSat regimes. Additionally, startups such as Altius Space Machines has been developing connectors and other mechanisms to facilitate the docking process. Another recent example on a larger spacecraft was Northrop Grumman's MEV last year, which proved that RPOD technology is at a mature state for satellite operations. RPOD technology is a subset of the larger on-orbit servicing and manufacturing, or OSAM, technology area, which has been a key interest for both governments and commercial organizations to enable satellite modularity, in-orbit servicing and deorbiting, in-orbit refueling, manufacturing of large space structures, and a persistent platform. We believe RPOD technologies will enable persistent in-space infrastructure that will help reduce costs and increase efficiencies of spacecraft operations. At Plutonics, we are building reusable space infrastructure as a service, utilizing RPOD technology. Our product is a reusable satellite bus system that provides customers with a turnkey service that is ready to go when they are, instead of waiting for long lead satellite components. We are also enabling a real estate type business model where customers pay per use and not for an entire satellite mission to help reduce overall costs for customers. Our solution is made up of three parts: a reusable satellite bus, which will be a heritage microsatellite bus modified with RPOD sensors and interfaces, a payload integration pallet, or PIP, which will be a transfer conduit between customer payloads and the reusable satellite bus, allowing customers to access power, data, and tasking capability from the reusable satellite bus. Finally, we plan to aggregate 1 to 5 customers on a single mission to help reduce costs even further. Let me walk you through our concept of operations. First, customer payloads are integrated on a payload integration pallet, or PIP, on the ground and launched as secondary payload to an orbit that is close to a reusable satellite bus, or RSB, already in orbit. Once in orbit and separated from the launch vehicle, the PIP will null out rates and start transmitting a radio signal to help the RSB find it. The RSB will incorporate RPOD sensors such as LiDAR and a docking mechanism to capture the PIP. After an initial functional checkout, customers will be able to access their payloads through a secure web platform where they can task their payload and get back data from their mission. Customers will pay per use, and this means paying a rental fee for access to the platform and a metered fee for power and data that they use. When all customers on a particular PIP are done with their mission, the reusable satellite platform will jettison the PIP and the current set of customers into a decaying orbit. At this point, the reusable satellite bus is ready to receive a new set of customers and start the cycle all over again, thus enabling reusability. Including RPOD technologies and a reusable bus into our trade-off set shows that there is a way to have your cake and eat it too, by bringing together the best of the free flyer and hosted payload models. RPOD technologies can enable new architectures that bring the best of many solutions to the market now. In conclusion, we believe that the space industry is on the cusp of explosive growth, but the infrastructure to support its growth hasn't been fully developed. Current solutions still require a high tolerance for risk or significant capital resources to buy down the risk. We believe that RPOD technology will bring about new architectures that will reduce the barriers to entry for space ventures, especially CubeSats and their payloads. At Plutonics, we're working to enable reusability with RPOD technologies to realize its benefits and reduce the cost of space access for everyone. Thank you. At this time, I'd love to field any questions and also I'd love to talk about your space missions. Appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to you soon.